Bart De Wever, in his book Woke, argues that a dangerous shift has occurred within Western societies. What began as a legitimate movement for social justice has morphed into something insidious. This new ideology, often termed wokeness, threatens the very foundations of liberal democracy. Initially, the seeds of wokeness were planted with noble intentions. Activists sought to expose and rectify genuine injustices faced by marginalized groups. They aimed to raise awareness about systemic racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination. Their goal was a more equitable and just society for all. However, De Wever contends that this initial focus on equality has been hijacked. A radical ideology has emerged, one that goes far beyond addressing specific instances of injustice. This new ideology seeks to fundamentally reshape society, often through radical and divisive means. De Wever argues that this shift represents a dangerous departure from the principles of liberal democracy. He believes it threatens the very values that underpin a free and open society. One of De Wever's most scathing critiques of wokeness centers on its intolerance of dissenting viewpoints. He argues that this ideology has created a climate of fear, where individuals are afraid to express opinions that deviate from the accepted narrative. This stifling of debate, he warns, is deeply harmful to a healthy democracy. De Wever points to the increasing prevalence of cancel culture as evidence of this trend. Individuals who dare to question woke orthodoxy are often subjected to vicious online attacks, public shaming, and even professional consequences. This creates a chilling effect on free speech, as people become hesitant to express themselves openly for fear of reprisal. Furthermore, De Wever argues that wokeness enforces a rigid ideological conformity. This goes beyond simply demanding sensitivity or awareness. It seeks to dictate how people think and behave. Those who fail to conform to these strictures are labeled as bigots, racists, or transphobes, labels that carry significant social and professional consequences. This intolerance for dissent, De Wever warns, creates a dangerous echo chamber. It prevents the open exchange of ideas that is essential for a healthy democracy. Central to De Wever's critique of wokeness is its emphasis on identity politics. He argues that by constantly focusing on differences and grievances, wokeness serves to divide society along racial, gender, and sexual lines. This, he believes, undermines social cohesion and creates a climate of resentment and distrust. De Wever contends that identity politics fosters a victimhood mentality. It encourages individuals to see themselves primarily as members of oppressed groups, defined by their perceived grievances. This, he argues, can lead to a sense of perpetual outrage and a desire for retribution, rather than a focus on shared goals and common ground. Furthermore, De Wever argues that identity politics creates a hierarchy of victimhood. Certain groups are deemed more oppressed than others, granting them greater moral authority. This can lead to a situation where the voices of some groups are amplified, while others are silenced or marginalized. This emphasis on division, De Wever warns, is deeply harmful to social cohesion. It creates a society where people are constantly suspicious of one another, rather than working together for the common good. De Wever draws chilling parallels between the woke movement and historical examples of ideological extremism. He argues that the tactics employed by woke activists, such as public shaming, ideological purity tests, and the suppression of dissent, bear a striking resemblance to those used during periods like Mao's Cultural Revolution. During this period in China, individuals were persecuted for deviating from the strict ideological dictates of the Communist Party. Dissent was ruthlessly crushed, and those deemed insufficiently revolutionary were publicly humiliated, imprisoned, or even killed. De Wever sees echoes of this intolerance and ideological zealotry in the tactics employed by some woke activists today. While acknowledging the obvious differences in scale and context, De Wever argues that the parallels are too striking to ignore. He warns that the same impulses that drove past ideological excesses are present within the woke movement, and that left unchecked, they could lead to similar forms of intolerance and repression. In the face of what he sees as a dangerous ideological tide, De Wever issues a passionate call to return to the core values of the Enlightenment. He believes that these principles, reason, individual liberty, free speech, and tolerance, are essential for a free and flourishing society. De Wever argues that the antidote to the excesses of wokeness is not to embrace an equally extreme ideology on the opposite end of the spectrum. Rather, it is to reaffirm the principles of open inquiry, rational debate, and respect for individual rights. He believes that these values provide the best foundation for a just and equitable society. De Wever's book is a call to action, urging readers to resist the siren song of ideological extremism. He calls for a return to reasoned discourse, a commitment to individual liberty, and a recognition of our shared humanity. Only by embracing these values, he argues, can we hope to build a future where freedom and justice prevail? Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a comment with your opinion, like the video, and share it with your friends.